Submitted for the approval of the Midnight Game Society, I call this the Tale of Blood and Betrayal. Alright everyone, this is the first part of the finale encounter. This is encounter 1 for Blood and Betrayal. So the hero's goal is they have a battle standard and they want to either place it right over here, I believe that's called the hill, or over here on the layer. After they place it down, they can call it the quits. They can get more bonuses for part 2 the further along they get on the map. All the way up to the layer is the best. And then the Overlord is trying to stall for 8 turns. At the end of each turn, they get to place a Fell Spirit. After they place the 8th Fell Spirit, the encounter is over. Also, they have a side quest for each of the heroes that they KO. They get some hero tokens that will help them for encounter 2. First up for the Overlord is Belther. He can fly, he has reach, so he can attack 2 spaces away. He has Cry Havoc, which is move, and anyone he moves over, he gets to do an attack action, and he can search for poison. He does a melee attack with 2 red dice and a blue die, and we're equipping him with Duskblade, which lowers adjacent heroes' speed if they start next to him, and then the really good part is he can search for Pierce 5. Next up is Splig. He has this ability called Not Me, so if he's next to another little minion, like a goblin or something, he has a chance to test his willpower, and they take the damage instead of him, which is pretty good. He can use an action to promote to turn a regular minion into a master minion. He has Surge for knockback. He can search for extra damage. He does a melee attack with 1 of each die. We're giving him Shield of Zork's favor right here, so he has a chance to retaliate some damage back when he's hit. Moving along, we have Myriads right here. They get to do a melee attack with 1 of each die, and then the Master one can also do, well, they can do reach, so they can attack 2 spaces away. The Master one is flail, so he can attack 2 heroes, and they have Surge for immobilize and extra damage. They also get Barghest, which do a blue die and a red die for the regular one, and then the Master one also gets a yellow die. They have this ability called Howl, so they will make everyone within range 3 test I believe it's willpower. If they fail, they get a fatigue. And then they also can do a melee attack, and then they can surge for some extra damage. And the Master one has Night Stalker, so if it's attacked by a ranged attack, it gets an extra brown die. They also get to control cave spiders. They do a melee attack. Both of the regular and the Master get a blue die and 2 yellow dice. They can poison, which is like a test that the heroes have to do for strength, and if they fail, they take a damage each turn. They can surge for some extra damage here, and the Master one has web, so anyone trying to move from a space next to the Master one to adjacent space has to spend a fatigue. Next up are the Goblin Archers. They do a ranged attack. They get a blue die and a yellow die, and the Master one gets an extra yellow die. They have Scamper, so they can move past enemy heroes, so like the heroes they can move past. And then Cowardly, they can only use their Surge abilities if they're within range 3 of a Master Minion or a Lieutenant. And then the only bonus for the Master one is they can do extra range and extra damage with their Surges. Moving along are the Elementals. They do a ranged attack for 1 of each die, and then they have 4 different power abilities as actions. They don't have any surges, so they have to rely on these powers. Last up are the Zombies. They get a blue die and a yellow die, and the Master one also gets a red die. They have Shambling, so they can unfortunately only move once per turn. They have Surge for disease, so if they do a damage to the hero and get the Surge the disease on them, they have to test willpower each turn or lose fatigue. And they also have Surges to do some extra damage, and then the Master one can just grab, which immobilizes a hero in place. First up for the heroes is Shalara. For items, she has Ice Storm, Mana Weave, and Leather Armor, and for skills, she has Bright Blaze, Familiar, Iron Will, Rune Mastery, Quick Casting, Runic Knowledge, and Exploding Rune. Next up, the heroes have Tatiana. For items, she has Heavy Cloak and Latari Longbow, and for skills, she has Running Shot, First Strike, Accurate, Danger Sense, and Nimble. Next up, the heroes have a Sharon. She has Steel Greatsword, Demon Hide Leather for items, and then for skills, she has Cloud of Mist, Drain Spirit, Stone Skin, Healing Rain, and Ancestor Spirits. And last up for the heroes is Grisban the Thirsty. He has Grinding Axe, Lucky Charm, and Chainmail for items, and for skills, he has Death Rage, Weapon Mastery, Charge, Brute, and Rage. Also for setup, the Overlord's going to attach Vengeful Resolve over here on the Goblin Archers. So it's after setup, pick a small group, which is them, and then they can spend 1 threat token and exhaust this for a turn, where anytime the Goblin Archers would take a damage, the heroes also suffer damage back. Alright, last thing we have to do is the travel action. We start here at Kathiri Ruins. We have to go all the way through here to Blood and Betrayal. So let's go ahead and draw the first one, which is going to be a road event. Let's go ahead and draw the card right here, and then for road we have no event. Next up, we have to move over here from the road to this water event. Let's go ahead and draw it and see what we get. We get another no event right there. Alright, moving along from the water event over here to this forest event. Let's see what we get. We get webs hang everywhere. Each hero has to test awareness. Each hero who fails is ambushed by a spider and is poisoned. If all the heroes fail, they also each suffer a damage. Let's go ahead and roll that. All right, Grisman is first. He has awareness of 1, so he's trying to get 1 or less. He fails, so he gets poisoned. Next up is a Sharon. Her awareness is 4, so 4 or less. Let's go into the castle. Again, one more time. All right, she succeeds. Moving along to Tatiana. She has 5 awareness, so she's trying to get 5 or less. She's good. Last up is Shalara. She has 1 awareness, so she has to get lucky and get a 1 or less. She succeeds. All right, after the forest event, we have to go over here and do a plains event. Let's see what we get. We end up getting a no event. Last up, they move over from this plains to this plains event, so let's see what they get. They end up getting this right here. You come across a band of refugees. If you stop and help them, the Overlord draws 1 card. If they refuse, each hero suffers a damage. They have to think about it. They thought about it. It's a pretty rough choice. They don't really want to start with damage because some of the damage can carry over from encounter 1 to 2 or 3. So they're just going to have to give the Overlord an Overlord card. But they do have a strong deck at this point in the game, so it's a tough call. All right, now we get to start the turn 1 for Blood and Betrayal. At the beginning of the hero's turn, Sharon's going to go first. She's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 right over here for her first action. She's going to interrupt it to then do a search token right here. She ends up getting Health Potion, and then she's going to continue her movements, 5, and then she's going to, I believe it's a free action to spend out a Blood Rune here. The heroes have 4 of them. Any hero within range 2 of this can have this Blood Rune take the damage instead, and it has 10 health. Grisman's going to go next, but he has to test poison first. He needs to do a might test. His might is 5, so he has to get 5 or less. He succeeds, so he gets rid of poison. He's then going to take his turn. He gets 2 movement actions, 1, 2, 3 right here, 1, 2, 3 right there. He's just getting ready for next turn. That's the end of Grisman's turn. Next up is Shalara, but before she goes, she's going to move Bright Blaze 4, 1, 2, 3, 4 right there, just to move them up. And then she's going to go 1, 2, 3, and then she's going to make a range attack against the Master Goblin Archer. She gets 2 yellow dice and a blue die. She needs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 range against the gray die. All right, she's trying to get 6 range first, and then she's trying to do 6 damage. Let's go ahead and bring all this out. She did not get the range. She doesn't have anything to re-roll, so that's unfortunate. But she will spend 2 fatigue right here and exhaust this to immediately be able to do another attack. Let's place that on her right there and then go ahead and do the same attack. All right, same deal. She's trying to get 6 range and then do 6 damage. All right, she misses the range again. 3, 4, 5. All right, that's the end of Shalara's turn. Last up is Tatiana. Her first action is to move 1, 2, 3, 4 right here. And then her second action is to attack the Master Goblin Archer with the longbow. She gets 2 yellow dice and a blue die against a gray die. She needs to get 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 range. 4 because of her hero ability. All right, let's see if we get the 4 range. We're good on the range. Remember, we're trying to do 6 damage total. We have 1, 2, 3, 4 damage and a surge against 1 right there. We do have a pierce 1 naturally, so that goes away. So then we're gonna use the surge for 2 more damage. So 6 damage goes through and takes out the Master Goblin Archer. Let's go ahead and remove that from the map, and that's the end of the hero's turn. At the beginning of the Overlord turn, they draw a card, which ends up being Dark Fortune. Next up, Splig's going to do a move action, 1, 2, 3, and then he's also going to go 1, 2, 3 right there. That's the end of his turn. And then the bar guests are going to go. They get to move 4, so this one's going to take this spot right here, 1, 2, 3, 4, and expand. And then it's going to go ahead and move again, 1, 2, 3, and then I guess it expands right over here into the water. This one's going to go this spot, 1, 2, 3, 4, expand. And it's going to go ahead and pick up 1, 2, 3, 4, and then expand right there. Same thing with this one right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, expand, and then pick itself up. 1, 2, 3, 4. I guess it's going to go right here. This one, we're going to do this one quickly. 1, 2, 3, 4, expand, and then 1, 2, 3 right here. All right, that's the end of the bar guests. The fire elementals, or sorry, the elementals get to move 4. We're going to pick this spot. 1, 2, 3, 4, expand. Then it's going to go pick up 1, 2, 3, 4, and expand right here. Get ready to do some range attacks. Then we're going to go ahead and move this one. 1, 2, 3, 4, expand. It's going to go right, probably over here. Yeah, we'll pick that spot. All right, and then last up is going to be the Goblin Archers. This one's going to make an attack on Tatiana here. It needs 1, 2, 3, 4 range because of her special ability. It gets a yellow die and a blue die against her gray die and her heavy cloak. All right, remember we need 4 range right here. Let's see if we get the range. We don't get the range. We are within range 3 of Splig, so we can use a Surge, but Tatiana is going to use the Heavy Cloak, therefore the Surge gets canceled out, and then the range is only 3, so the Goblin Archers miss. This Goblin Archer is going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 with its second action, and then this one's going to go next. It's going to attack Grisband. It gets a yellow die and a blue die against its 2 gray dice. It needs 2 range. Let's go ahead and roll that. All right, let's see if we get the 2 range, and then see if there's any damage going through. We got the range, and it does look like we have enough damage, so it's going to be 2 damage against 1, so Grisband takes 1 damage. Let's go ahead and place the damage right there. Actually, I forgot about this blood glyph, so we're going to go ahead and take the damage from Grisband and place it on the blood glyph. It has 10 health, might as well use it. All right, and then this Goblin Archer is going to move 5, 1, 2, 3, 4 right here next to Splig, so Splig can use the Not Me ability. All right, this Goblin Archer is going to go next. It's going to attack Tatiana. It needs to get 1, 2, 3, 4 range because of her special ability, a blue die and a yellow die against her gray die. All right, we're trying to get 4 range first to see if that happens. We got the range right here, so it looks like 3 damage against 2 defense. Tatiana's going to take 1 damage, but she's going to have the blood rune take it instead. Let's go ahead and place that right there, and then this Goblin Archer is going to move 5, 1, 2. It's actually going to stay. Let's actually think about it. Doesn't want to group up because Shalara can do like a blast attack, so it's just going to go 1. I think right there is fine. All right, and then this one's going to go, actually it's going to go 1, 2, 3. That's a rough spot. 3, 4, right over here. All right, and then this one's going to go next. It's going to attack. It's actually going to do a movement action. It's going to go 1, 2, 3, interrupt its movement action to attack Grisband right here. Needs 1, 2, 3 range with a yellow die and a blue die, and then Grisband gets 2 gray dice. All right, let's see if we get the 3 range. We're good on range. Let's go ahead and pull all this out. So it looks like it's going to be 3 damage against 1, and then a surge for 2 more damage. So 5 against 1, 4 damage goes through, but they're going to have the blood rune take the damage instead. Let's go ahead and exchange this 1 for 5 for the 4 damage. This blood rune still has 4 health left. And then the Goblin Archer is going to complete its move. It has 2 left. It's going to go 1, 2 over here in the corner. And that's the end of the Overlord's turn. At the end of the Overlord's turn, they get to place a Fell Spirit. So it's going to place it right here. So this is going to do a couple things. The first thing is any hero that ends its turn within range 2 of the Spell Spirit immediately ends their turn. And then also the Overlord gets to place 1 zombie right there, and it gets to make 1 movement action or attack action. It's going to go ahead and attack Tatiana right here. This ends up getting 1 of each color die against her gray die. All right, let's see what ends up rolling. That ends up being a miss. Let's see if the Overlord, they do have Dark Fortune right here, so they get to re-roll that die. Let's go ahead and re-roll this. Give it a good jiggle down the castle. All right, that ends up being a hit. So let's go ahead and place all these out here. We have 1, 2, 3 damage and 2 surges against a defense. They're going to go ahead and use 1 surge for disease and then 1 surge for +2 damage. So it's going to be 5 damage minus 1. So 4 damage and disease go through. They're going to go ahead and give it to the blood rune. I have to look up the rules to see if the Tatiana still gets diseased. She does not receive disease because she has to take at least 1 damage, but the 4 damage is enough to take out the blood rune. And there's also one more thing for the end of the Overlord's turn. All right, the Overlord's going to activate Vengeful Resolve for 1 threat token. Exhaust this. Anytime this turn the Goblin Archers get hit, the heroes also get hit back for damage. We have to go ahead and give a Fortune token to one of the heroes. We're going to go ahead and give the Fortune token to Shalara. All right, first up is Shalara, but before she goes, they're going to go ahead and move this Bright Place Familiar 4 spaces. It's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4 right up over there. She has to place down a blue rune right here. This one's going to be the Holy Rune. She has to place it within 1, 2 spaces of herself. And now any Fell Spirit within 2 spaces of this is now nullified, so she can then go ahead and move without being her turn interrupted and ended. So she's going to go 1, 2, 3 right here. She's going to do a ranged attack and spend a fatigue right here to do an exploding rune to hit all 3 of them. She has to get range 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She gets 2 yellow dice and a blue die. We're going to go ahead and roll the Goblin Archer first, which is a gray die. Let's go ahead and add a fatigue for the exploding rune right here. Also, there's Vengeful Resolve in the Goblin. So let's go ahead and roll this. Remember, we need 5 range, so that's the important part. All right, we end up getting a miss, and there's nothing to do about it. Actually, I'm wrong. They're going to use the fortune token right here to go ahead and re-roll this blue die. Give it a good jiggle and see if we get the range and if we get a hit. All right, we did end up getting the range. Let's pull this all out right here. A lot of spells and abilities. All right, so it's going to be 4 damage against 1 defense. We're trying to do as much damage as possible because this is going to hit everyone. So we're going to go ahead and add on Mana Weave for a surge, and then Rune Mastery for a surge as well. So that's 2 more surges. So we have, well, I guess we don't even need all the surges. We're going to go ahead and save this one. So with the 2 surges, the first one is to add 2 damage. So that's 6 against 1. So 5 damage to the Goblin Archer. And also anyone who still lives will be immobilized. Let's go ahead and do that. All right, so 5 damage takes out the Goblin Archer. We're going to go ahead and roll for Splig next. He gets a gray die and a brown die. We take a damage for the Vengeful Resolve right there, and then a gray die and a brown die. Remember, 6 damage and Immobilize is going through. Let's go ahead. We have 3 defense right here, so 3 damage Immobilize on Splig. All right, let's go ahead and place the 3 damage and the Immobilize token right there on Splig. All right, last up, we have to roll the defensive dice for the Master Barghest right there. Because it's a range attack, it also gets a brown die, and then its normal black die. Remember, once again, 6 damage and Immobilize is going through. So let's go ahead and see how much gets hit. So 6 damage minus 3, 3 damage and Immobilize on the Barghest. Let's go ahead and place that right there. And then after that, Shalara is going to spend 2 stamina to do quick casting to attack this Goblin Archer. Actually, this one right over here. She needs 1, 2, 3, 4 range. She gets 2 yellow dice and a blue die against the gray die. All right, let's go ahead and exhaust quick casting. Add the 2 fatigue right here. Remember, she's trying to get 4 range. She's trying to do 4 damage, 4 damage. All right, she ends up getting a miss. All right, next up is Grisban. His first action is to move 3. 1, 2, 3 right here. He's then, as a free action, going to place a Blood Rune right here, 1, 2 spaces away to absorb some damage later on. And his second action is to attack Splig with his Grinding Axe. He gets a blue die and 2 red dice against the gray die and the brown die. All right, he's trying to do 13 damage. It's unlikely, so he's just going to do as much damage as possible. All right, so let's go ahead and pull out all of this. It looks like a lot of damage is going through. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. He could spend his surge to get 1 more, but he's not going to do that yet. So 7 damage goes through, and the shield's not going to do anything because no defenses were rolled. All right, let's go ahead and place the 7. He had 3 on him, so we're going to exchange it for 2 5s. He still is immobilized right here. And then Grisban's going to use his Heroic Feat to do another attack on Splig. So we're going to have to flip over his card, 2 red dice and a blue die against a gray die and a brown die. He's trying to do 6 damage. All right, let's flip over his card, showing that he did his feat right here. Remember, he's trying to do 6 damage. Go ahead and roll all of that. Looks like a ton of damage is going through. We have 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, minus 1. So 6 damage will be going through, but the Overlord is going to spend this right over here, Armor of Darkness, and a threat token right here to get 2 more defense. So then Grisban has to use Weapon Mastery to get another surge, and with the 2 surges, he's going to add another 5 damage. So that is going to be 11 damage minus the 2, so 9 damage goes through. Splig gets knocked out. Let's go ahead and remove Splig from the map right there. And then we're going to give the Fortune token to Shalara. All right, Tatiana is going to be up next. She's going to go ahead and attack this Goblin Archer. She has running shot, so she's going to use her 2 movement points before the attack. So 1, 2 right here. She needs 1, 2, 3 range. 2 because of her hero ability. She gets 2 yellow dice and a blue die against a gray die. Remember, the Goblin Archer still have Vengeful Resolve. All right, she's trying to do 4 damage. Remember, she needs, I think it's 2 range. She's good on the range right there. So we're going to go ahead and add all of that. So that's 4 damage and 2 surges against 1 defense. So yeah, 1 surge is actually, that's Pierce goes through. So that's more than enough. 4 against 0 is 4 damage. And then the unspent surge will get rid of a fatigue. She's still full in stamina. So we're going to go ahead and she takes a damage, and we remove the Goblin Archer from the map. Let's place the damage right there. Let's go ahead and remove the Goblin Archer from the map. And then for her second action, she's going to attack this Goblin Archer. She's going to use Running Shot to get 2 movement to go right up over here. It's 2 yellow dice and a blue die against a gray die. There's Vengeful Resolve, and she's trying to do 4 damage. All right, she needs 1 range, so as long as she hits, she's good. All right, we got the range right there. We're going to do 2, 4, It looks like 5 damage in the surge for 2 more, so that's going to be 6 damage. Yeah, it definitely goes through, knocks out the Goblin Archer, and then she takes 1 damage from Vengeful Resolve. Let's go ahead and place the damage right there, and then remove the Goblin Archer from the map, and that's the end of Tatiana's turn. Sharon's going to go last. She's going to attack the Master Zombie with her Steel Greatsword. She gets 1 of each color against the brown die. She's also going to use Drain Spirit for this attack, so 1 fatigue right here. If she does at least 1 damage, everyone within range 3, all the heroes within range 3 will heal 1 health, and then she will spend a fatigue to have them also heal 1 more health and 1 more fatigue. So let's go ahead and see if she does a damage first, and then she gets to reroll a power die with her Steel Greatsword if she wants. All right, she's trying to do 9 damage. It's pretty unlikely that she does. So she has 5 damage against a defense right there. There's no surges. She's going to use her ability to reroll the yellow power die to try to get more than just a heart. She ends up getting the same thing. So yeah, 5 damage minus 1. So 4 damage goes through, but she's going to spend a fatigue and exhaust that right here. So everyone's going to heal 1 more health and 1 more stamina. So let's go ahead and do that real quick. Let's go ahead and place the 4 damage on the zombie right there. All right, so for the Drain Spirit and Ancestor Spirits, everyone gets to heal up 2 health and 1 fatigue. So Tatiana heals up 2. Shalara is 1 health and 1 fatigue. And then Ashirin gets to heal up 1 fatigue. All right, for her second action, she's going to move. She's going to go 1, 2. When she's right here, she's going to hand off her healing potion to Shalara. And then 2, 3, 4, 5 right there. All right, let's go ahead and shift over the potion right there. That is the end of the hero's turn. At the beginning of the Overlord turn, we draw a card right here, which is Dash. The Overlord's also going to play Word of Mystery at the beginning of their turn, so anytime the heroes take damage, they also suffer fatigue. The first activation is going to be the zombie. It's going to go 1, 2 right over here, and then it's going to attack Shalara. It gets 1 color of each die for attacking, and Shalara gets a gray die and a brown die. All right, it's trying to do as much damage as possible. Let's go ahead and see what it rolls. Got a lot of damage right here, which is not good for Shalara. Looks like there's going to be 6 damage and 2 surges. The first surge is going to add another 2 damage, so it's 8 damage, and then disease as well. 8 damage minus 2 is 6 damage, disease, and a fatigue. All right, let's go ahead and place the 6 damage, the fatigue, and then disease as well. All right, the Overlord's going to spend Frenzy to do the same attack, 1 a color of each die against Shalara's gray die and a brown die, but Ashirin's going to spend a fatigue and stone skin to give her another gray die. Let's go ahead and spend the fatigue and then exhaust the stone skin right there. All right, the Overlord's trying to do 5 more damage to Shalara. Let's go ahead and see what rolls. It has to go into the castle. Right, it looks like there's going to be 6 damage and 2 surges against 4 defense. So the first surge is 2 more damage, and the other surge is for disease. I guess it doesn't matter because she already has it. So that's 8 damage minus 4. She takes 4 damage and a fatigue, but I believe she still has 1 health left. Let's place the 4 damage, the 1 for the 5, and the 1 fatigue right there. That's the end of the zombie's turn. Next up is the Goblin Archer right here. It's going to attack Grisband. It's going to need 1, 2, 3 range. Actually, it's just 1, 2 range. It's going to be a blue die and a yellow die against his 2 gray die. All right, let's see if we get the range for 2. Just trying to do a little bit of chip damage here. It has to go into the castle. I don't think anything's going to go through. Let's go ahead and see. It's going to be 3 damage against 5 defense. Even with the surge plus 2 damage, it's 5 against 5. Nothing goes through. All right, after the attack, the Goblin Archer is going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right there. That's the end of the Archer's turns. And then the next up are going to be the Barghest. This one's immobilized, so it can't move. It could do a howl, 1, 2, 3. Yeah, I guess I can go ahead and do a howl. So Grisman's going to have to test willpower. If he fails, he suffers a fatigue. All right, he has willpower 3, so he has to get a 3 or less. He ends up succeeding. All right, next up is the minion Barghest right here. It's going to pick up. It's going to move 4, so it's going to choose that space. 1, 2, 3, 4, expand right over here. And second action is to attack Grisman. It gets a blue die and a red die against his 2 gray dice. There's the Blood Rune nearby, so it's just trying to do as much damage as possible. Let's go ahead and see what happens. It's a good amount of damage. We have 4 damage against 1 defense, so 3 damage to the Blood Rune. All right, let's place that damage right here. We're going to have someone jump on top of that soon, so we're going to go ahead and move it to the side. And then next up is going to be this Barghest. Let's see if it can get there. It's going to go 1. Let's see. I have to actually think about this real quick. All right, I thought about it real quick. This one's going to go... We're going to pick up this one. It's going to go 1, 2, 3... Sorry. 1, 2, 3, 4. Right there along the edge. And expand right here. Can't do Howl because it can't reach. This one's just going to move right over here just to block the path. The elementals are going to go one right over here and then one right over here. And that's the end of the Overlord's turn. At the end of the Overlord's turn, they're going to activate Blood Rage to get 2 more attacks, and then the monster's defeated. The first attack is they're going to use it on the Master Zombie right here. It's going to attack Shalara. It gets 1 of each die against her gray die and her brown die. It's trying to do just 1 damage to knock her out, so let's go ahead and do that. I think this will be enough. It's going to be 4 damage, 5 damage, and a surge for 2 more. So that's 7 damage minus the 1 defense. So 6 damage is more than enough to knock her out. We're going to fill her up on health and stamina. The disease goes away as well. All right, so normally we place the hero token in her spot, but for this scenario, the hero token goes all the way to the entrance right over there. We remove her off the map, and for the first time the hero is defeated, the Overlord gets to collect a hero token for Shalara for part 2. And then next up, this Master Zombie is going to use its second attack on Tatiana, 1 of each color against her gray die and her heavy cloak. The zombie's just trying to do as much damage as possible. Let's see what rolls. All right, we got, it looks like there's 3 damage and 2 surges against no defense, 1 heavy cloak to get rid of a surge. So the zombie is going to use its remaining surge for 2 more damage. So 5 against 0, 5 damage goes through to Tatiana. Let's go ahead and place the 5 damage right there. Blood Rage knocks out the zombie right there after the 2 attacks. Also at the end of the turn, the Overlord gets to place a Fell Spirit, so any spaces within 2 are cursed ground. If the heroes move on one of the spaces, they immediately end their turn. They also get to place a zombie. We're going to go ahead and place the Master Zombie back again. It gets either a move or attack action. It's going to take an attack action on Grisband. It gets 1 of each color die against his 2 gray dice. All right, the Blood Rune's nearby, so it's just trying to do 7 damage to the rune. Let's see what ends up happening. We have a lot of defense, but then we also have 3, 4, 5, 6 damage and 2 surges. 1 surge for 2 more, so 8 against 5. 3 damage goes to the rune. You can't disease it, so just 3 damage. All right, let's go ahead and replace a 2 with a 5 right there. So it's taken 6 damage, has 4 life left. I almost forgot to do it, but when Shalara was knocked out, we're going to put her hero token right over here because the Overlord gets a threat token. You can only get that once per hero per encounter. At the beginning of the hero's turn, Shalara gets a free stand-up action, so she gets to roll 2 red dice. All right, let's see how much health and fatigue she heals up. She heals up 6 health, so that's a free action, so she still gets 2 more. Let's bring her back to the map right over here, and then her first action is to move 3, 1, 2, 3, and then her second action is to rest. Let's go ahead and remove all of her fatigue tokens, and then also Bright Blaze gets to move afterwards. 1, 2, 3, I guess just 3 right there because there's water, so it's going to cost 2 to go over there. So there's going to be Pierce 1 on those. And that's the end of Shalara's turn. Grisband's going to go next. He's going to attack the Barghast with his Grinding Axe, so he gets a blue die and 2 red dice against a black die. He's also going to spend a Fatigue on Rage, so he gets 1 more damage. All right, go ahead and place the Fatigue right there. He's trying to do 6 damage. Remember, he gets +1 with the Rage. So let's go ahead and roll it. Let's see what we got. We have 3, 4, 5, 6 damage and a surge against 4 defense. We do have Bright Blaze next to it, so there is Pierce 1. Let's go ahead and bring that right there. Sorry for knocking that over. So that's going to be 6 against 3, so only 3 damage is going through. He's going to spend Weapon Mastery to get a second surge to add 5, which then lets 8 damage goes through, and then the Barghast gets knocked out. Oh, that was 9 damage right there. All right, we're going to go ahead and remove the Barghast from the map right there. For Grisband's second action, he's going to spend 2 fatigue on charge, so he's going to go 1, 2, 3 right here and attack the Master Barghast with his Grinding Axe. He gets 2 red dice and a blue die against the black die. He's trying to do 5 damage total. All right, let's go ahead and try to spend the 2 fatigue right here. Let's go ahead and roll all of that. We end up getting a miss. I forgot to do it at the end of the Overlord's second turn. It doesn't change this turn, but they got to place one of their open groups, so the Myriads are going to go right over here, all the way up in the lair. The spot's called the lair. And then the other Lieutenant Belthier also gets to go right here. They wouldn't have had a turn, so everything else still is as is. I also made another mistake, but it could have easily been fixed. So before Grisband moved, he was going to place down one of his holy grounds within range 2 of him. So he's right here before he moves. 1, 2, because if he did not, this cursed ground would have ended his turn the moment he moved right there. All right, fixed again. Next up is Tatiana. She's going to attack this Barghest right here, but she's going to use Running Shot to move 2 before she attacks. So 1, 2. So she needs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 4 range because of her hero ability. It's 2 yellow die and a blue die against a black die. All right, remember she needs 4 range and she's trying to do 6 damage. Let's go ahead and drop that in there. Let's pull this all out. She got the range. Looks like she's doing 2 damage in the surge, which won't be enough. She's going to use Accurate to reroll this one right here because it's only 1 damage. Maybe she's trying to get another damage, another surge. All right, that's the best. She got 2 damage and a surge. So 1 surge is for 2 more. So that's going to be 5 damage total. So it's not enough. It is Pierce 1. So that's going to be against 2 right there. So 3 damage is going to be going through. She could use her heroic feat to end up doing 5, but it's not enough. So she's just going to do the 3 damage. All right, let's go ahead and place the 3 damage right there. And then her second turn, or her second action, is to do the same thing against the Barghest. She's going to move 2 closer, so she needs less range. She needs 1, 2, 3, 2 range. Same dice, 2 yellow and a blue against a black. She's trying to do 3 damage. All right, it also has Pierce 1 from her Latari Longbow, so let's see if she gets the range. She got the range. It's going to be 3 damage and a surge against 2, minus the 1 for Pierce, so 3 damage against 1. 1 surge for 2 more, so 5 against 1, 4 damage goes through, and the Barghest gets knocked out. All right, let's go ahead and remove that from the map right there, and that's the end of Tatiana's turn. Last up is a Sharon. She's going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right here, and then her second action is to use Cloud of Mist for 1 fatigue. So anyone within range of 3, 1, 2, 3, so all of the heroes, if they're attacked for the next round, the Overlord has to spend a surge or the whole attack is a miss. All right, let's go ahead and exhaust this and place the fatigue right there. That's the end of the hero's turn. At the beginning of the Overlord turn, they draw a card, which ends up being Diabolic Power. They're going to think about using this. All right, they thought about it. They're going to use Diabolic Power to grab, I think it's called like Dark Might. Let's see. It's going to be this one right here. It's going to be a magic event. So all the heroes will have to test knowledge right now. Each one that fails loses 2 life. But before we get to that, I'm grabbing this because this is a surge to potentially use against Cloud of Mist. So not every attack will be an attack if the Overlord thinks one is important. All right, so they all have to test knowledge right here. Grisman has 2, so he has to get 2 or less or else he takes 2 damage. He fails, but he's going to use his Lucky Charm to get a reroll. So let's go ahead and reroll that right there. All right, we end up failing again. All right, so Grisman takes 2 damage. All right, Ashirin has 2 knowledge, so she has to get 2 or less. She succeeds. All right, Tatiana has 2 knowledge, so she also has to get 2 or less. She succeeds as well. Last up is Shalara with 4 knowledge. She has to get a 4 or less. She fails and takes 2 damage. All right. At the beginning of the Overlord turn, they're going to have Belthier go first. He gets to move 4. 1, 2, 3, 4, and then 1, 2, 3, 4 right over there. Then the Myriads get to move 3 each. This one's going to go first. It's going to use this corner as its spot. 1, 2, 3, expand right here. Then it's going to use this spot. 1, 2, 3, expand right there. We're going to do the Master one, this spot. 1, 2, 3, expand. And then choose this spot. 1, 2, I guess we get to stay right there. All right. Next up are the Barghest. The Master Barghest is going to attack Grisman right here. It gets 1 of each color die against 2 gray dice. He's trying to do 4 damage because the Blood Rune has 4 damage left. All right, let's see what happens. We're going to go ahead and roll all of the dice. It looks like we got a miss. Let's see if there's a way to re-roll this. There is not, so that's the end of its attack. All right, this Barghest is going to move. 1, 2, 3, 4. All right, that's the end of that Barghest turn. This one's going to go next. It's going to go 1, 2, 3, and expand right over here. And then it's going to move after it does its attack right here in Grisman. It gets a red die and a blue die against his 2 gray die. Remember, there's still Cloud of Mist, so they also need to, the Overlord needs to get a surge, or else the whole attack is a miss. We have 4 damage against 4 defense and no surge, so it's a miss and would have done no damage anyways. All right, so we were counting from this space. We're going to go 1 right up here. That's the end of the Barghest turn. Next up is this Goblin Archer. It's going to go 1, 2, interrupt its movement to then attack Grisman and needs 1, 2, 3 range. It gets a yellow die and a blue die against his 2 gray dice. Remember, it's trying to get 3 range. It also needs a surge for Cloud of Mist. So it got the range. It also got the surge, but I don't think that's enough damage to go through. So yeah, 3 damage. That's for Cloud of Mist. Or sorry, 2 damage minus 2 defense. That's a miss. It's going to continue its movement. So it did 2, 3, 4, 5 over here. That's the end of the Goblin Archer's turn. And then next up is going to be the Elementals. The Master Elemental is going to go first. It's going to attack Grisbin and needs to range 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. It gets one of each color die against his 2 gray dice. All right, it also has to get a Surge for Cloud of Mist. So let's see if we get the 5 range. We end up getting a miss, and there's no way to re-roll that. All right, and then for its second action, it's going to use air, so any non-adjacent attacks are missed against the elemental. All right, this one's going to go next. It's going to move 1 space up over here, end its movement, and then go ahead and attack Grisbin. It gets a 1 of each colored dice. It needs 1, 2, 3 range against 2 gray die. All right, let's go ahead and get 3 range. All right, we got it. There's no surges. Well, I guess that's for Cloud of Mist, so the surge is for the Cloud of Mist, so the attack's not a miss. And then 3 against 3, so no damage goes through. It's going to complete its movement and just stay right there, just to block off the space, because one of the goals is to plant the standard over here if they can't get all the way over to the lair. So that's the end of the Elemental's turn. Last up is the Master Zombie. It's going to attack Grisbin. It gets 1 color of each die against 2 gray dice. It needs to get a Surge for Cloud of Mist. It also wants to do 4 damage because there's the Blood Rune nearby. So let's see. It looks like I think we're going to get that. So it's going to be 5 damage and 2 surges against 2 defense. So 3 damage is going to go through, 1 surge for 2 more, so 5 damage, and then 1 surge to get rid of Cloud of Mist. So the Blood Rune gets knocked out. So we remove this Blood Rune from the map, and then also there was 1 more damage, which does go through to Grisbin. Let's go ahead and place the damage right there. For its last action, the Master Zombie is going to do Hold on Tatiana. She has to test Might. If she fails, she's immobilized. All right, her might is 2, so she has to get 2 or less. Oh, it has to go into the castle. Give me a second. Let's see. She succeeds. At the end of the round, the Overlord gets to place its 3rd Fell Spear right here. After it places 8, the encounter will be over if the heroes don't call it before then. We put a zombie there. It gets a free movement action or an attack action. It's actually just going to block off the pathway here because the first way the heroes can end this is dropping the battle standard here in the hill. All right, and also at the end of the Overlord's turn, they're going to play Word of Despair, so each of the heroes have to test willpower. Each one who fails suffers a fatigue at the end of each of their actions next turn. Grisbin has willpower 3, so he has to get 3 or less. He fails, so we're going to put a fatigue under his base to remind me that that happens next turn. Sharon is next. She has willpower 3, so 3 or less. She's good. Oh, sorry, I have to move that over there. She's good. Next up is Tatiana. She has 2 willpower. Just get 2 or less. She ends up failing. Last up is Shalara. Her willpower is 3, so we're looking for a 3 or less. She's good. First up is Shalara. She's going to move 1, 2, 3. She's going to attack the Master Zombie with Ice Storm. She gets 2 yellow dice and a blue die against a brown die, and she needs 1, 2, 3 range. All right, let's see if we get the 3 range first. All right, we got the range right there. So she wants to do 8 damage total. Actually, they have 9 health, so she wants to do 9 damage, so she's trying to do as much as possible. She's going to use, I guess she has 2 surges. So her first surge is to add 2, so that's going to be 5 damage against 2. Her second surge is going to be to use this Runic Knowledge, so that's going to add another 2 damage, but she has to suffer fatigue. So we're now at, 2, 4, 5, 6, 7 against 2, so 5 damage is going through. Bright Blaze is there, so 6 damage is going through, so we're going to go ahead and do that. But the Unspent Surge is going to get rid of 2 fatigue right there, and then afterward, she's going to exhaust this to add 2 fatigue to do 1 more attack. All right, let's go ahead and do that. All right, let's go ahead and put the 6 damage right there, and let's go ahead and do the same attack. 2 yellow dice and a blue die. She needs 1, 2, 3 range. She's trying to do 3 more damage. The zombie gets a brown die, so let's see what happens. Let's see if we get the range first. We got the range. It looks like we did get enough damage. Let's go ahead and pull all of that out. So it's 2 damage and a surge. So 1 surge is 2 more, so it's 4 damage, enough to knock it out. We're going to spend the Mana Weave to get an unspent surge to do Iron Will to remove 2 fatigue. And the zombie, we remove him from the map. All right, let's remove him right here. And that's the end of Shalara's turn. Next up is Grisbane. He's going to move right here. 1, 2. He does have Word of Despair on him, so he's going to suffer fatigue after that. But before we do that, he's going to attack the Barghest with his Grinding Axe. He gets a blue die and 2 red die against the black die. All right, he's trying to do 6 damage. Let's go ahead and see what he rolls. Has to go into the castle. All right, he got 1, 2, 3, 4 damage right there and a surge against 2 defense. he's going to spend his weapon mastery right here to get another surge, which adds 5 more damage. So it's going to be 9 damage minus 2, so 7 damage goes through, which is enough to knock out the Barghest. But we do place the fatigue for the movements for the Word of Despair, and then after the attack, he suffers a fatigue. He's full, so he takes a damage instead. Let's go ahead and remove the Barghest from the map. That is the end of Grisman's turn, but before he ends, as a free action, he's going to place a Blood Rune right over here, I guess just right under himself. Anyone within range 2 can then put their damage onto the Blood Rune, and it has 10 health. Alright, that's the end of Grisman's turn. I forgot we can't place the rune where a figure is, so we're just going to put it 1 space over. Next up is Sharing. Her first action is to grab this search token. Let's see what she gets. She ends up getting a health potion. And then her second action is to use Cloud of Mist. So she's going to spend 1 fatigue. Anyone within range 3, their attack misses unless if they spend a surge. Let's go ahead and exhaust this and place a fatigue right over there. That's the end of Sharon's turn. Alright, next up is Tatiana. She's going to move 1, 2, 3, 4 right over here. But because she has Word of Despair, she's going to suffer fatigue. But before we do that, she's going to take a range shot at this Master Elemental over here. She needs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 range. 5 range because of her special ability. It's 2 yellow dice and a blue die against a black die and a brown die. Alright, let's go ahead and put the fatigue there for the Word of Despair. She's trying to do 9 damage, I believe. No, it's going to be 10 damage total. Give me a second. Sorry, I grabbed the wrong dice. Remember, we need 5 range. Let's go ahead and see that. We got the range, plenty of range. So we have 1, 2, 3 damage against 3 defense right there. And then we can surge. We can actually use accurate to reroll this because we have the range. We don't need the range on that. Cool, we got another damage, another surge. We do have Pierce 1, so that is against 2 shield. First surge is for 2 damage, and the other surge is to remove a fatigue. So that's going to be 5 damage minus 2. 3 damage goes through. Let's go ahead and do that. Let's place the 3 damage over there, and then she has running shot, so she gets to move 2 for free. So she's going to go right up over there. She does lose a fatigue for the attack for Word of Despair, but then we talked about how she had the unspent surge, so she doesn't receive any fatigue. It gets removed. Add 1, remove 1. At the beginning of the Overlord turn, they draw a card, which ends up being Tripwire. Alright, first up are the elementals. This Master Elemental is going to attack Tatiana. It needs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 range, 6 because of her special ability. It gets to roll 1 of each die against her gray die. She also has a heavy cloak, and Cloud of Mist. So let's see if we get the 6 range first. We don't get the range, so the attack's a miss. Its second action is to use the air ability, so it can't be attacked unless if it's by an adjacent attack. I kind of messed it up last round. I'm just going to let it lie for now, the 3 health. That was unfortunate. Alright, this elemental is going to go next. It's going to attack Tatiana. It needs 1, 2, 3 range, 4 because of her ability. This one still gets 1 of each die against her gray die and heavy cloak and Cloud of Mist. Alright, first let's see if it gets 4 range, and it also needs surges. Alright, it got the range right there. 1, 2, 3, 4. It is a lot of damage going through. It's 5 and a surge, but Tatiana is going to use the cloak to get rid of the surge. But then the Overlord's going to use Dark Might right here to get a surge to be able to get past Cloud of Mist, and Tatiana takes 5 damage. Let's go ahead and place the damage right there. I have to rewind real quick. The 5 damage does not go on Tatiana. It goes on the Blood Rune that they set up. Let's go ahead and place that right there. And then the Elemental is going to think about what it wants to do for its second action. It thought about it. It's also going to do the air ability, so it has to be hit by melee attacks until the end of next turn. Next up is the zombie. It's going to attack Grisman. It gets a blue die and a yellow die against its 2 gray die. Alright, let's see what it gets. It also needs to spend a surge for Cloud of Mist. Alright, it got 4 damage against 4 defense and no surge for Cloud of Mist, so the attack does no damage and it's missed. Next up is the Goblin Archer. It's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right over here. It's going to attack Tatiana and needs 1, 2, 3, 4 range because of her special ability. A blue die and a yellow die against a gray die in Cloud of Mist. Remember, we need 4 range first. Alright, we did not get the range at first, but we do have 2 surges. So it's 3 damage against 1 defense. So 2 damage is going through. First surge is for 2 more range to be good in that. And then the other surge is for Cloud of Mist. So the attack's not a miss. So yeah, 2 damage goes through to Tatiana, but it's going to go to the Blood Rune instead. Let's go ahead and place that right there. And that's the end of the Goblin Archer's turn. Next up is this Master Barghest right here. It's going to use this spot. 1, 2, 3, expand. interrupt its 4 movement, so it has 1 more movement to then attack Grisband. It gets to roll 1 of each color die against the 2 gray die in Cloud of Mist. Alright, it's trying to do as much damage as possible, but remember it needs a surge. It wants to do 3 damage as well to get rid of the rune. Let's see if these will go down. Alright, let's pull that all out. We don't have the surge, so I think there's nothing the Overlord can do about it. Let me double check. Alright, there's nothing, so the Barghast is going to continue. It's 1 more movement. Alright, it's going to pick itself up. It was this spot right there. It's going to go right over there. Bring the health along. It's getting a little tight in space here. Alright, that's the end of the Barghast's turn. Next up are the Mariods. They have 4 movements each. This one just going to choose that spot. 1, 2, 3, 4. Just going to go right over here. The regular minion Miramata is going to go right there. And then Belthier is going to go next. He gets to move 4. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then the second movement is 1, 2, 3, 4 right over here. He's going to attack Tatiana. He gets 2 red die and a blue die against her gray die. I guess she already used the Heavy Cloak and then Cloud of Mist. He's trying to do 7 damage. Remember, there's Cloud of Mist, so he needs a surge. All right, he rolled really well. So he got 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 damage against 3 defense. The surge, unfortunately, has to be spent on Cloud of Mist, or else that would have been really good for the Duskblade. So yeah, 7 minus 3, 4 damage goes through the Tatiana, 3 to the rune, and then 1 left over to her. All right, let's remove this blood rune from the map right there and place the 1 damage left over in Tatiana. At the end of the Overlord's turn, they're going to place a Fell Spirit right over here. It's hard to see. The zombie is going to go down. They could use a free movement action. Actually, yeah, they'll use it. They'll go 1, 2, 3 right here to block the way. And that's the end of the Overlord's turn. All right, first up is Grisband. He's going to move 1, 2, interrupt his movement to then do an attack on Belthier with his Grinding Axe. He gets 2 red dice and a blue die against 2 gray die and a brown die. All right, he's trying to do as much damage as possible. Let's see what he rolls. Hopefully not a miss. All right, that's a good amount of damage. Let's bring that out. 3, 4, 5, and a surge against 2 defense. We're going to add another surge to then go to add 5. So that's going to be 10 minus 2. Belthier takes 8 damage, so he has 18 health, so he has 10 left. Let's go ahead and place the 8 damage right over there. And then he's going to complete his movement. He has 1 more speed left. He's going to move right there. The Fell Spirit would end his turn, but his turn's already done. All right. Next up is Shalara. She's going to move 1, 2, 3 right here. Actually, before she went, she's going to use Bright Blaze. 1, 2, 3, 4. And then her second action is to attack this Master Zombie and spend a Fatigue for Exploding Rune. So it's going to hit all of these. Well, I guess not the Elemental because it has air up. It's going to be a range 1, 2, 3, 4. It's 2 yellow dice and a blue die against 2 gray die and a brown die. Let's go ahead and get that ready. I forgot to mention it, but we're going to roll for Belthier's defense first. So let's go ahead and see if we get the 1, 2, 3, 4, at least still a range on the zombie. Let's go ahead and pull all this out. She's trying to do as much damage as possible because it stays the same for the whole attack. We have the 4 range, 1, 2, 3, 4. That's good, barely enough. And then we have 2 defense for Belthier. Let's go ahead and add up all the surges. So the first surge is going to add 2 more damage. And then we're going to spend Mana Weave to get another surge, to then spend Runic Knowledge. We're getting ahead of ourselves. We have to spend 1 for the Exploding Rune, and now 1 for the Runic Knowledge to add 2 more damage. So that's 4 extra damage. So that's going to be 8 damage against 2, 1 because of Bright Blaze. So that's 7 damage. We're going to see if we can do 3 more damage. I don't think we can do 3 more damage, but we can use Rune Mastery. Sorry, there's a lot of stuff going on. Right there to get an unspent surge, to then use Iron Will to remove 2 fatigue. After all of this, we will be doing quick casting, but we'll get to that later. So 7 damage goes through the Belthier. All right, we're going to add 7 plus the 2 3s over here to add 2 more 5. So he's taking 15 damage. He has 3 life left. Let's go ahead and roll for this zombie next. It gets a brown die. Remember, we have 8 damage and Pierce 1 going through. That's still the same. So that ends up being 8 damage, which I think is, it still has 1 life left on the zombie. Let's go ahead and place the 8 damage right here on the zombie. And let's go ahead and roll for this zombie's defense. Also gets a brown die. Remember, once again, 8 damage, Pierce 1. Ends up getting 2 shields. So 1 shield gets pierced. So 8 minus 1 is 7 damage goes through, which is enough to take out the zombie, which only has 5 health. We go ahead and remove the zombie from the map. And then we're going to go ahead and roll for this Goblin Archer. It gets a gray die, and that one has 4 health. Alright, let's go ahead and roll the gray die for the goblin. It has 4 health, it rolled 2 defense, we were doing 8 damage and pierce 1, so 7 damage goes through, the goblin archer gets knocked out. Let's go ahead and remove the goblin archer from the map. We are then going to spend 2 fatigue over here and exhaust quick casting to take another rune attack. She's going to attack the master zombie with Ice Storm. She's just trying to do 1 damage. It's 2 yellow die and a blue die on a brown die. She needs 1, 2, 3, 4 range. She also has Pierce 1 for Bright Blaze. Remember, she needs 4 range. Let's see if she gets the range. She's good in the range and definitely good in the damage. Let's go ahead and pull all of this out. So 2 damage is going through, 1 surge for +2, so might as well do 4 damage. And then the unspent surge is going to use Iron Will to remove 2 fatigue instead of 1, and the zombie gets knocked out. Let's go ahead and remove the zombie from the map. And that's the end of Shalara's turn. Next up is Tatiana. She's going to attack Belthier with her Latari Longbow. She gets 2 yellow dice and a blue die against 2 gray die and a brown die. But before she goes, she's going to use Running Shot to move 2 up right over here. She doesn't have to worry about range. She's trying to do 3 damage. Let's see what she rolls. She does have Pierce 1 from her bow. Alright, so we got 2, 4, 5 damage is going to go through. Well, 5 damage, and then there's 5 defense. So only 1 damage is going to go through. She could use her feat to get rid of this die and ignore it. So that would be 5 against 1. 4 damage would go through to knock it out. So she is going to go ahead and do that. Alright, so we flip over her character card to show that she used her feat, and then we remove this die. But then the Overlord is going to use Armor of Darkness once again, exhaust it, add a threat token right here, or spend a threat token to get 2 more defense. So it ends up being 5 damage against 4 defense, -1 for the pierce, so 2 damage goes through. Let's go ahead and place the 2 damage in Belthier right there. He has 1 life left. We're going to give a Sharon the fortune token. Next up, Tatiana is going to place a holy rune right over here, 1, 2 spaces away, so any 2 spaces within the holy rune counteracts the cursed ground, which ends the turn. Then Tatiana is going to take her second action. She's going to attack Belthier, but before she goes, she's going to move 1 right up over here. All right, she gets 2 yellow dice and a blue die against his 2 gray die and brown die. She's trying to do 1 damage. All right, we don't have to worry about range, so let's see what we get. It has to go into the castle. That one dropped again. 1 more time. All right, we got 4 defense, and it looks like we got 4 damage with Pierce 1 from the bow as well, and 2 surges. So this is going to be enough damage. So the first surge is to do an extra 2 damage. So that is 6 against 3. 3 damage goes through, as well as the unspent surge will remove 1 fatigue. Let's remove the fatigue right there, and then remove Belthier from the map. Last up is a Sharon. She's going to move 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right there, then use rest, but also as a free action, she's going to place down a blood rune right over here, right? And that's the end of the hero's turn. Let's not forget to remove her fatigue counters. At the beginning of the Overlord turn, they draw a card, which ends up being Frenzy. First up, the Overlord's going to use the Elementals. The regular minion's going to go first. It's going to use Dash, though, to get an extra movement. It will make sense in just a moment. So it gets to move 4. It's going to go 1, 2, 3, and expand right here. And its first action is to do the fire attack. So it's going to attack everyone adjacent. So it's going to hit Tatiana, Sharon, and Grisband. It's going to be 1 color of each die. We're going to roll for Tatiana first, who gets a gray die and the heavy cloak. All right, it's trying to do as much damage as possible. There's a blood rune nearby, so it's just trying to get as much out. All right, there's no surges on the elementals. We still brought the heavy cloak just in case if the Overlord had like a critical blow card. All right, it's going to be 5 damage minus 3 defense, so 2 damage goes to the blood rune. The blood rune is actually under the elemental, so we're just going to put the tokens right over here in this nook. All right, and now we're going to go on to the attack with the Sharon. She gets 2 gray die for this. Remember, we still have the 5 damage going through, so let's see how much a Sharon gets hit for. She rolls 4 defense, so 1 damage goes through to the blood rune. Let's go ahead and put the 1 damage right over here in the nook. It's taken 3 damage so far. And then we're going to roll for Grisband, who also gets 2 gray dice. Once again, 5 damage is going through, so let's see how much Grisband takes. It rolls 2 defense, so then 3 damage, 3 more onto the blood rune, so it took 6 damage. All right, so we're going to replace the 2 hearts for a 5, so then it's 6 damage has gone through. And then next up, the elemental is going to think about its second action. All right, next up, it's going to use the action, the water ability. So each hero adjacent to the elemental has to test willpower. Each one that fails suffers 2 fatigue. So let's go ahead and roll for Tatiana first. Tatiana has 2 willpower, so she has to get a 2 or less. Has to go into the castle. All right, she fails, so she takes 2 fatigue. All right, as Sharon's next, she has 3 willpower, so she has to get a 3 or less. She's good. Grisman's willpower is 3, so he has to get a 3 or less. So let's see. He fails. He uses his lucky charm to roll the attribute test again. Once again, 3 or less. All right, he fails. He's full on stamina, so he ends up taking 2 damage instead. So let's exchange the 4 all the way up to a 6. All right, that's the end of that elemental's turn. Next up is the Master Elemental. It's going to move right over here. Then it's going to attack Tatiana. It needs 1, 2, 3, 4 range because of her special ability. It gets 1 of each colored die, and then Tatiana gets a gray die. The rune has 4 health left, so let's first see if there's 4 range rolled. We end up getting a miss, and there's no way for the Overlord to re-roll again. Next up is the Master Bar Guest, but before it goes, Tatiana is going to use First Strike, so she's going to spend 2 fatigue. She gets to attack the Master Bar Guest. She gets 2 yellow die and a blue die against the black die, and a brown die because it's a range attack. All right, let's go ahead and exhaust First Strike, add the 2 fatigue right here. This is the Night Stalker ability that gives it an extra brown die. So it's trying to do 5 damage. Let's go ahead and see what she gets. All right, she got a lot of damage. There is Pierce 1 from the bow. So we got 4 damage, Pierce 1 against the 3. So we'll go ahead and move the 1 aside. And then the Surge is going to add 2 damage. So it's going to be 6 against 2. That's 4 damage going through. It still has 1 health left. We're going to go ahead and roll accurate to see if we get 1 more damage. So right now, we're 1 short. We did get it. And then also the unspent fatigue to remove a stamina. All right, let's go ahead and remove them from the map. All right, we go ahead and remove the Barghast from the map, and that's the end of the Barghast's turn. All right, last up are the mirror mods. This one right here, the master one, it's going to move. It's going to shrink down, count this 1 space, 1, go right here. It's right next to Tatiana, so it's going to attack her with 1 color of each die. She gets a gray die and a heavy cloak. It's trying to do at least 4 damage because the rune has 4 life left. All right, let's go ahead and pull all that out. I have to pull out the mirror mod card real quick, right there. So it's doing 4 damage and a surge. We're going to go ahead and use the heavy cloak to get rid of the surge. So 4 damage minus 1, 3 damage goes through to the blood rune. We're going to go ahead and put it right here on the side, and then the blood rune has 1 life left. The mirror mod's going to continue its movement from that spot and go over here and expand. And then the regular one's going to do the same thing. It's going to move 1 spot, make an attack. It gets the same dice, 1 of each color, against a gray die. There's no heavy cloak this time. Sharon's going to spend a fatigue and stone skin to give Tatiana 1 more gray die. So let's go ahead and roll that real quick. Remember, the blood rune has 1 life left, so they're just trying to prolong it. This is not good, though, for the heroes. We got 5 damage and a surge against 1 defense, 1 more surge for 2 more damage. So that's 7 minus the 1. So 6 damage goes through, 1 to the rune, 5 to Tatiana. Let's go ahead and place the 5 on Tatiana. She has 1 more life left. Let's go ahead and remove the rune from the map. It's actually right here. All right. And then the Myriad's going to recontinue its movement and just go 1 back right over here. That's the end of the Overlord's turn. At the end of the Overlord's 5th turn, they place a Fell Spear right here. They also get to place a Master Zombie. It gets to make an attack against Tatiana. It gets to roll 1 color of each die against her gray die is trying to do 1 damage. All right, let's see if she gets lucky. She does not. We're going to go ahead and pull out all this and do it real quick. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, surge, 8, 9, minus 2, 7 damage goes through, and Tatiana gets knocked out. All right, the first thing we do is remove her figure from the map, and then we place her token all the way over here at the beginning for this special scenario rules. And then the Overlord gets a hero token for Tatiana for encounter 2. The Overlord also gets a threat token, and then a Tatiana's hero token as a reminder. You can only get that once per encounter. Then we fill her up to full damage and full stamina right there. Also, at the end of the round, all the cave spiders get to spawn over here on the lair. So there's going to be 5 of them. There would have also been Baron Zakhareth, but he got eliminated earlier in the campaign, so he does not spawn. At the beginning of the hero's turn, Tatiana gets a free stand-up action. She gets to roll 2 red dice. Let's see how much she heals up. She gets to heal up 4 health and a fatigue, so let's go ahead and do that. The 5 down to a 1 and the fatigue, and return her back to the map. All right, let's remove her token, and there she goes. All right, first up, Tatiana is going to move 5. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. She's then going to take a shot at the elemental and use running shot. She gets to move 2, so she gets to move 1 right over here. She needs, let's see, she has to count from the score 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 range, 5 because of her ability. She gets 2 yellow dice and a blue die, gets a black die and a brown die. She's trying to do 8 damage. Let's see if she gets the 5 range at first. Let's go into the castle. All right, she did not get the range yet, but she does have surges. So we have 6 damage and a surge against 3 defense. There is a natural pierce, so we'll set that aside. And the surge will add 2 more range, which is good. Yeah, that's the only surge we have. So 6 minus 2, 4 damage goes through. Bright Blaze is also right here, so there's another pierce 1, so it ends up being 5 damage instead of 4. That's the end of Tatiana's turn. Next up is a Sharon. She's going to attack the elemental with her steel greatsword. She gets 1 color of each die. It's a brown die and a black die, and she gets pierce 1 from Bright Blaze. She's trying to do 3 damage to finish off the elemental. That ends up being a miss. She's going to use her fortune token right here to get a reroll on that 1 die. So let's go ahead and reroll it into the castle. All right, it's good. Remember, she's trying to do 3 damage. We have 2 damage and 2 surges against 4 defense and 1 pierce. We're going to use the, well, we could reroll something. I don't think we're going to reroll anything. Actually, the red die would be good. We're going to reroll the red die because 1's a low number. All right, that's much better. So we're trying to get 3 damage total. So we're going to use the first surge for Pierce 2, so that's gone, and then one of those others is gone from Bright Blaze, and then the other surge for plus 1 damage. So it's going to be 3, 4 damage, minus 1. It's enough to take it out. All right, so 3 damage is enough to take out the elemental right there. Her next action is a move action. She's going to go 1, 2, 3 right over there, and that's the end of Sharon's turn. Next up is Grisban. He's going to move 1, 2, 3 right over here. He's going to attack the Master Zombie with his Grinding Axe. He gets 2 red dice and a blue die against a brown die. He's trying to do 9 damage. All right, let's see if he can get up to 9. This is pretty good sign right here. 3, 4, 5, 6. There is no pierce with 1 defense, so 5 damage is going through, but this surge plus this surge will add 5 more, so 10 damage goes through and the zombie gets knocked out. All right, let's go ahead and remove the zombie from the map, and that's the end of Grisban's turn. All right, next up is Shalara, but before she goes, Bright Blaze is going to move 4, 1, 2, 3 right over here to get Pierce 1 against them. Then she's going to move 1, 2, 3. She's going to spend 2 fatigue to get 2 movement points to go right up over here. All right, so we're going to place the 2 fatigue right over there. She's then going to use Exploding Rune on this spot right over here, so she has to spend 1 fatigue, and she needs 1, 2, 3, 4 range right there. She gets 2 yellow die and a blue die. We'll roll for the elemental first, who gets a black die and a brown die. All right, let's spend the fatigue for the Exploding Rune right there. Let's see if we get the 4 range first. Has to go into the castle. All right, we did get the range, so let's bring this all out. We're doing 1, 2, 3, 4 damage and a surge, which is good, against 2 defense. The elemental has 10 life, but remember, this is going to be for the whole attack. There is Pierce 1. So the first surge is going to add 2 more damage. So the one will have 6 damage total. The next surge is going to add another 2 damage and a fatigue right there. So that's going to be 8 damage. Let's add the fatigue. And then we have 1 more unspent surge to remove 2 fatigue at the end of all this. We'll just do that right now. All right, so we have 8 damage and Pierce 1 going through. So 8 minus 1 is 7 damage to the Master Elemental. I know a long time ago we had 3 damage dealt on this elemental, but I felt bad because it was a ranged attack and it was really hard to rewind. So I'm just going to actually say that like no damage was dealt because it wasn't supposed to be that way. So we're going to go ahead and add the 7 right there out of the 10. And then we're going to roll the Myriad's defense right there. It gets 2 gray dice, or Myriad's defense. Sorry, I always say that wrong. All right, we have 8 damage, Pierce 1. The Master one has 9 health. All right, so we got 2 defense, 1 minus 1. So 8 minus the 1, 7 damage goes through. We're going to go ahead and place the 7 damage right there and then roll this Myriad's defense as well, 2 gray dice. All right, 8 damage and Pierce 1 going through. This Myriad has 7 life. Has to go into the castle. Give me a second. Here it is. All right, we got 4 defense, minus the 1 for Pierce. So 8 minus 3, 5 damage goes through. Let's go ahead and place the 5 damage right there. And that's the end of Shalara's turn. Actually, no, she's going to spend 2 fatigue to do quick casting. She is going to attack the Master Elemental again. She needs to get 1, 2, 3, 4 range. And then she gets to roll 2 yellow dice and a blue die for her Ice Storm against a black die and a brown die. She's trying to finish it off for 3 damage. All right, let's go ahead and exhaust the quick casting and add the 2 fatigue right here. Like I said, she needs 4 range and she's trying to do 2 damage. There is also Pierce 1 for Bright Blaze. All right, we did get the range, just barely enough. So we got 1, 2, and 3 damage, and then 2 surges against 4 defense. So she's trying to do 3 damage. So the first surge is going to add 2 damage. So that's 5 against 3 is 2. Still not enough. She needs to use the second surge to use Runic Knowledge here to spend a fatigue and add 2 more damage, which is enough to knock out the Master Elemental. All right, we remove the Master Elemental from the map, but the Overlord is going to use this card right here, Rise Again. So we get to place a fatigue marker down over here. And then we get to spawn it again at the beginning of the next turn and gets 1 more round. That's the end of the hero's turn. At the beginning of the Overlord turn, they draw a card, which is Dark Fortune. They're going to Rise Again the Elemental and choose this spot. It's within 5 of the fatigue marker. All right, the first thing is this Elemental is going to use its fire attack, so it's going to attack everyone adjacent. So it's going to hit a Sharon first. It gets 1 of each color die versus her 2 gray dice. All right, it's trying to do as much damage as possible, so let's see what it rolls. All right, we got, it looks like 4 damage and 2 surges. The surges do nothing, and then we also have 2 defense, so no damage goes through. Let's go ahead and roll for Grisban next. It's still 4 damage. Grisban also gets 2 gray dice. He also gets 4 defense, so then no damage goes through. All right, for its second action, it's going to get out of the way. It's going to go ahead and move 1, 2, 3, 4 right over here, just to move out of the way. And then the Master Marriott's going to go first. It's going to move and then interrupt its movement to attack, but it's going to go 1 right here and expand. It has reach and flail, so it's going to attack these 2. It gets a red die, blue, and yellow. It's going to attack a Sharon first with 2 gray. Let's try and do as much damage as possible. Remember, Sharon's first. All right, it has to go into the castle. Let's go ahead and pull all this out. We have 4 damage and a surge against 1 defense. We're going to use the surge for 3 more damage. So 7 minus 1, a Sharon takes 6 damage. Let's go ahead and place this 6 right there, and then a roll for Grisban's defense next. Remember, Grisban gets 2 gray dice and 7 damage is going through. All right, got 2 defense. So 7 minus 2, Grisban takes 5. All right, let's go ahead and place the 5 right there. That's the end of the flail attack. The Overlord's going to use Frenzy to do another flail attack, so it gets to attack both Asheron and Grisban again. So we're going to go ahead and roll against Asheron first. But before that happens, she's going to spend a Fatigue and Stone Skin on herself to get an extra gray die. We only have 2 in the base game, so I'm going to have to re-roll 1 of them, add them all together. All right, let's go ahead and see what we got. For damage, we have 5 damage going through. 4 damage going through against 2 defense, and I have to add 1 more for the Stone Skin. So 2 more, so no damage goes through to Asheron, so now we get to roll for Grisban. All right, 4 damage going through. Grisban gets to roll 4 defense, so go ahead, pull that out right there, but no damage goes through as well. All right, it's going to continue its original movement and then go back right over here to block the hill over here, because that's where one of the heroes can place a battle standard and end the map. Next up is the regular Marriott. It's going to move 1 right over here. It has reach. It does not have flail, so it's going to attack Asheron. It gets 1 of each color die, and she gets 2 gray dice. It's trying to do 4 damage to knock her out. All right, let's see what rolls. We end up getting a miss. We do have Dark Fortune right here to then spend this to re-roll this attack die. Hopefully not a miss. All right, that's not a miss. So we're going to bring out all the damage right here. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, surge, 8, 9, minus 3, 6 damage goes through, and Asheron gets knocked out. All right, we first fill her up on health and stamina right there. We remove her figure from the map right there, and then for the scenario rules, her hero token goes all the way over here in the beginning, and then the Overlord gets to collect 1 hero token for encounter 2. The Overlord also gets a threat counter, and then we use Asheron's hero token to remind them that they can only get it once. All right, then the Marriott's going to go back and complete its movement right over here, and then the Cave Spiders are going to go next. They get to move 4, but they're going to move 8 because they want to catch up. This one's going to go 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Let's see. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 right there. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And then 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. All right, that's the end of the Overlord's turn. At the end of the Overlord turn, they get to place a Fell Spear right here, and they also get to place a zombie. They are going to use that zombie to attack Grisband. It gets one of each colored die against its 2 gray dice. It's trying to do 7 damage, so let's see what it rolls. All right, let's pull that all out. Looks like there's no surges, so it's going to be 4 damage minus 3 defense. 1 damage goes through. We place the 1 damage right there. And last up, the Rise again goes away, and so does the Master Elemental. At the beginning of the hero's turn, Asherin gets a free stand-up action, so she's going to roll 2 red dice to see how much she heals up. All right, she gets to heal up 5 health and 1 fatigue right there, so 5 health, 1 fatigue. Let's return her to the map. All right, let's remove the token, place her right there. Then she's going to do 2 movement actions, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. And then her second movement is 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 right over there. She does have Demon Hide Leather, so if she moves twice, she suffers a fatigue. All right, let's place the fatigue right there, and that's the end of her turn. Next up is Grisband. He's going to move, but when he moves 1 right here, the Overlord's going to play this tripwire right here. So he has to test awareness. If he fails, he has to end his movement action. His awareness is 1, so he has to get a 1 or less. He succeeds. He gets to continue on with his movement action. He's going to continue on right over here, and then after his movement action, he's going to place the last holy relic that they have right here. It's just going to place this right here, so anything within 2 counters any cursed ground. He's then going to use the second action to use his grinding axe on the regular Myriad. He gets to roll 2 red dice and a blue die against a black die and a brown die. He's trying to do 2 damage. I was wrong real quick. The Myriad gets 2 gray dice, not a black and a brown. All right, let's see what it rolls. Looking for 2 damage. All right, looks like we might be able to get it. 3, 4, 5, 6, 7 against 3 defense. 1 surge plus 2 surge is plus 5. So 12 minus 3, 9 damage goes through, and the Myriad gets taken out. All right, let's remove it from the map, and that's the end of Grisband's turn. Next up is Shalara, but before she goes, she's going to move Bright Blaze right over there, 1, 2, and then she's going to go 1, 2, 3 right over here and attack the Myriad with her Rune Frost. She gets 2 yellow dice and a blue die against 2 gray dice. She's trying to do 2 damage. All right, she also has Pierce 1 from Bright Blaze. Let's see if she can do the 2 damage. She ends up getting a miss, but she's going to use her Fortune token to re-roll this right here. So let's go ahead and re-roll it. We're good now, so let's go ahead and pull that all out. So it looks like we have 4 damage and 2 surges against 2 defense. So that's more than enough damage to take it out. So at least, 1 surge for 2 more for good measure. And then the 1 surge for Iron Will to remove 2 fatigue right there. And the Myriad's taken out. Let's remove the Myriad from the map right there. And then before she ends her turn, she's going to place the battle standard on the hill right there. And that's the end of her turn. Last up is Tatiana. She's going to do a movement, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 over here. And then her second action is to attack the Master Zombie. She needs 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6 range. 5 because of her special ability. She gets 2 yellow dice and a blue die against a brown die. Remember, she's trying to get 5 range. Let's see if we get the range first. Has to go into the castle. All right, we did not get the full range yet, but we do have a surge. So we got 5 damage and a surge. We have to use we're going to actually re-roll this die right here. We don't want to spend the surge on damage. All right, so we're good right there. So 1 surge is plus 2 range, so the attack is good. 4 damage goes through. The other unspent surge is going to remove the fatigue. All right, let's place the 4 damage on the Master Zombie right here. And since the heroes have placed the battle standard on the hill, they're going to decide to end it. They would only have 2 more turns to try to get everyone over all the way up here on the layer. It's not going to happen. They're going to take more damage and fatigue, and some of that will carry over to encounter 2, so we're going to go ahead and do cleanup. All right, we're going to summarize this real quick. This just says that the Overlord only gets to keep up to 8 cards from one encounter to the next. They have none right now, and then each hero on the layer would be able to heal up everything. No one was on the layer. That's all the way at the end. So there is no health or fatigue recovery. Overlord gets to keep the 3 hero tokens from the 3 heroes defeated. And then the players right here, since they got to place their battle standard on the hill, they would get 2 red objective tokens for the next part. If they didn't place the battle standard, they would have gotten 1. If they would have been able to place it on the layer, they would have been able to get 3. And then right here, the next scenario depends on if the Overlord won either Prison of Kin or Rite of the Red Dawn. We played Prison of Kin. The Overlord did win that, so we transitioned to encounter 2A instead of 2B. Alright, that's the end of Blood and Betrayal Encounter 1. Thank you for watching. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel. Good night.